Hunter is one of the newest classes added to the pantheon of classes that are basically official, but not really official, but basically yes official of D&D classes. So what is their deal? Where do they come from? And most importantly, can we make them even weirder? Well, we're gonna do exactly that and more, and you're gonna get something brand new to add to your own games for free in this very special episode of D&D with a twist, Blood Hunter Edition. So when I think of Blood Hunters, I think of... Blood Hunter is a class for bathtub scene enjoyers and unironic Linkin Park AMV appreciators. Blood Hunters are sort of fist-fighting warlocks and rogues under the bleachers for the title of edgiest D&D class. This manliner-wearing boys have Welcome to the Black Parade injected directly into every aspect of the class, and I love it for it. But what are they? When I first got introduced to the Blood Hunter class as a D&D baby, I didn't quite get what it was. I hadn't played The Witcher, so when someone told me it's like The Witcher, I assumed that they hunted witches, and that's not it. I also remember someone explaining it to me as they are monster hunters, and my first thought was, isn't that every D&D class? Are witches monsters? Is there's like an anti-mage? And nope. In truth, I think the best way of looking at blood hunters to understand the concept is that blood hunters are sort of the ranger's cousin, the edgier cousin who smokes and says cuss words. We gotta understand their lore to actually get what blood hunters are. So let's look at that first. Blood hunters are like rangers that exclusively focus on hunting monsters, rather than sometimes hunting like a rabbit here and there for fun, or to protect the forest, or whatever. Ignore that one. Blood hunters are divided in orders. Those are their subclasses. We'll get into that. And those orders are specifically made to hunt and kill specific monsters. Most of the time. I'll get to it. Another pretty big difference that is at the core of the blood hunters' flavor is blood magic. Of course, the edgiest school of magic. Blood hunters, shockingly, hold on to your gamer chairs, use blood to hunt. Contrary to popular belief, they do not hunt blood. That's vampires. Although the Ghost Layer order does hunt vampires. Anyway, that's not important. Don't distract me. Blood hunters use blood magic, or hemocraft, or emocraft, to hunt thingies that resist divine rebuke or arcane bindings. Because these guys are so devoted to hunting these evil meanie monsters, they gotta be careful they don't do a bit of a Jedi turned Sith Anakin Skywalker and become a monster themselves. Which is no doubt an intentional reference, giving Matthew Mercer's noted love of the Star Wars oeuvre and vast expanded universe.
This question is about Star Wars.
Yes!
Apologies to Matt.
He's a very sick robot.
I
could care less.
If you don't understand why I'm referencing Matthew Mercer, just wait. Blood magic doesn't come cheap, and in the Blood Hunter's case, it comes at the cost of their HP and kind of their personhood. When a Blood Hunter joins an order, they undertake what is called the Hunter's Bane. This is what allows them to use blood magic. But it also changes them irrevocably. The changes that come from the Hunter's Bane and the whole blood magic deal make blood hunters seem unnerving and kind of scary to normal people. So most of them have their orders as their only friends and tend to not make connections with normal people. Can you perchance feel an inspiration? Yes, blood hunters were very much directly inspired by The Witcher. We'll get to it. Blood magic is in most circles considered not polite, and this is because blood magic in the case of the blood hunter is plainly stated to be a technique with dark origins that tests the strength and will of those who employ it. There's this undercurrent in the class that being a blood hunter is at best not good for you, and at worst can actively lead you to become the thing you hate the most. As the old saying goes, the hunty becomes the hunted. Or whatever. Okay, we got it. We know what these guys are. But do you know where they came from? As I said, for the longest time, like until last year, it was the only official non-official class. The only homebrew, technically, prominently featured on D&D Beyond. What's up with that? Well, I found all the answers. This is by far one of the most research-heavy videos I've ever made. I dug through old tweets, obscure forum posts, weird ad-written articles, the depths of Avernus, the wilds of the Feywild, my childhood home, everything. To bring you this little video right here, so get ready to get schooled. And by I did a lot of research, I mean my human familiar. I'm not doing all that. Human familiar, blood hunter history lesson. Now.
Human familiar.
Hello. It's me. Zorlok. You guys like my cosplay? The hood stays on, right? Always on. I sound like this because I'm sick, not because I went to karaoke.
Liar!
I also have this. I have it on computer too, but I like to show it off on Switch so that sad people that think that they're better than other people because they play on different consoles get mad. Blood Hunters are famously the brainchild of Matthew Mercer, most known for his seminal work in the influential and intensely beloved star-studded internet-native fantasy saga Critical Mythica, in which Matthew Mercer played, of course, Zorlok, Prince of Dyria, wielder of the Darkspore, and leader of the Golgothian army. Am I the first Zorlog cosplayer? Maybe. Do the other ones wear Pokemon t-shirts under their robe? Initially, blood hunters were called witch hunters. Yes, it was even more confusing, but I bet you don't know why. Turns out, the blood hunter as a class was initially made for Vin Diesel. Yeah, I'm not kidding, but I think most people do not know this. Vin Diesel played in a Critical Role one-shot. I finished campaign 2, but I haven't finished campaign 1 or 3. I'm still working through them. I haven't gotten to this point yet. The one-shot in question was called Diesel. God bless. And it was to promote a movie called The Last Witch Hunter.
Father?
Do you know what it's like to live forever?
No, you have not heard of this, but, fun fact, Amy Carrero was in Witch Hunter along with Vin Diesel. And more than 7 years later, she would be on Critical Role in Exandria Unlimited. Small world. I guess you could say she joined the family. Family. And playing the only D&D character that was ever named Opal. So not only do we have to thank the country of Poland, but also Vin Diesel for the creation of the Blood Hunter. Why Poland? Well, from the very beginning, the Blood Hunter was extremely inspired by, shock, awe, hold on to your white-haired wig while you can, The Witcher. Enough with that. The Witcher is sort of Poland's primary export at this point, and Matthew Mercer, massive fan of The Witcher and afflicted with the same disease that afflicts every D&D designer ever, myself included, said, what if HP as resource? And thus was the Blood Hunty born. The class got added to D&D Beyond around 7 years ago, just like the Witch Hunter movie, making it basically official. And now, official kinda? Now that D&D owns D&D Beyond? Maybe. I don't know laws. And then in 2020, Matthew did a redesign of the whole class. The redesign also included plenty of buffs and changes to the subclass that Taliesin Jaffe, one of the other players in Critical Role, played in campaign 2, ensuring with those buffs that nothing bad would ever happen to that character at all. And now we're here. Blood Hunter hasn't gotten an update to match the other 2024 classes, but maybe it will, who knows? I really don't. This is not me setting up something. That's enough research, familiar. Okay, we got it. We know what Blood Hunters are. We know how they came to be, but what can they actually do other than not hunt blood? Let's move on to abilities. Okay. No. Sit back down. Tell our dear viewers about abilities too. You know it's hard to find footage for that. Okay. Abilities. Blood Hunters were designed as, and I'm quoting the creator here, a second-line combat class, which is nerd speak for no tanking. They are the DPS utility guys, much like Rangers or much like monks in 2024. The crux of the class is, as previously mentioned 7 times already, HP as a resource. You give up some of your HP to do some fun stuff. Classic trade-off. Makes you stronger, but also puts you closer to death. For the basics, we get medium armors, shields, and access to all martial weapons. So, very much a martial class through and through. Also, these guys seem built for the dual wielding feat, because of course they are. What kind of self-respecting edgelord would you be without dual wielding? And I even found an article by Matthew Mercer himself, offhandedly mentioning the Demon Hunter from Diablo 4, which I always suspected was a sneaky reference for these guys. Game recognizes game. Literally. But there's some weirdness with what stats they use. The saving throw proficiency on dex is very much pushing you towards a dex build, but these guys could be strength build. Like, there's nothing that completely negates that, but that's not what's weird. Power off, she said. But that's not the weird part. This can be said for nearly every martial. The weirdness is in the stat tied to blood magic. Originally, it was wisdom, and after 2020, it's intelligence. This was done for thematical cohesion and to give more representation to intelligence, which we all know it needed, and it still does, so I agree with the change. Here's the tweet by Zorlog himself. I need to stop with this stupid joke. I'm sure he won't see this, but just in case he does, I hope that it's clear that I do this out of respect and love. I'm just an easily amused idiot. Anyway, the new version uses intelligence, but there's a variant rule that lets you use wisdom, and so you can pick whichever one you want at the beginning of character creation. I like intelligence better. Moving on. The first ability is Hunter's Bane. This is a spooky ritual that all blood hunters have to take in order to be blood forklift certified. It gives you advantage on tracking fae, fiends, or undead, and advantage on checks against anyone that has the misfortune of talking to you about your hyperfixation, which is monsters. This also gives you your Hemocraft save DC. Hemocraft is nerd speak for blood magic, which is itself nerd speak. The monks get a similar spell save DC, so do Battle Master fighters. It's a blood hunter's version of a spell save DC. You know how those are? You know how those work? Moving on. Blood Maledict is one of the many signature abilities of the blood hunting, and it's kinda complicated, so listen up. Blood hunters have a Hemocraft die. very much like monks. It starts at a D4 and it grows up with levels, finishing at a D10 at level 17. They also have blood curses, which are special abilities that you activate when you invoke your blood maledict. Whenever you do that, when you activate the curse, you can choose to amplify it in fun and unique ways. How? With your blood, of course. You roll your Hemocraft die and take the result as necrotic damage. And then after that, your blood curse is amplified. Blood curses are kind of like Warlock, Eldritch Invocations. You pick them from a list, and once you choose one, you go to town once you invoke your blood maledict thing. And just like the Warlock, they range in usefulness. A lot. Curse of the Anxious, which is the one I was born with, lets you do intimidation checks to anyone that you've been bullying with advantage. But if you amplify the blood curse with the powers of hemoglobin.
Anytime he coughed, he hemoglobin.
The next saving throw that creature makes is at disadvantage. Amazing to set up some important spells. All of these, by the way, do not work on a creature without blood, which I think is a fun limit. You better be ready to say goodbye to all of this if you're fighting a starfish or R2-D2 or something. I see this as clearly yet another intentional reference to Star Wars from the designer.
It's coarse, rough, and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
It gets everywhere is a part of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Isn't
why
that
it's
nuts?
the worst.
The worst.
You can only use this blood thing once between short rests starting out, but you get more uses later as you go in levels. It's cool, honestly. It feels Warlocky without just being the Warlock's thing. Like, it's unique enough that it feels very much theirs. At level 2, you get a fighting style, which really highlights the fact that the 2020 rework that Matthew did was to make these guys feel very martial. The rework, like, changed the hit die and gave them the fighting styles. Weird thing about fighting styles, though, they get very few of them. You get archery, dueling, great weapon fighting, and 2-weapon fighting. And there's a bunch of the PHP ones missing. And that's it. They don't get many, but don't worry, they sure get to make many other choices. Crimson Rite, also at level 2, jeez, is another thingy that kind of works like Eldritch Invocations, but not really. This is a very customizable class. As a bonus action, you activate the power of the edge. And you make your twin katanas glow with dark red energy or something. Activating this also damages you with your Hemocraft die, by the way. But in exchange, every time you deal damage while these twin katanas are active... Oh, what's that? You want the twin crossbows. Feeling very daring, huh? Anyway, when your Crimson Rite is active, you add your Hemocraft die to the damage. My voice is leaving me. And the type of damage depends on the Crimson Rite you activate. That's why you gotta choose. Rite of the Flame deals fire type damage. Rite of the Frozen deals ice type damage. Rite of the Dead is ghost type damage. Rite of the Oracle is psychic. And Rite of the Storm deals Pikachu damage.
It's Pikachu!
And Rite of the Roar breaks this joke. At level 3, you pick a subclass, just like in 2024, no need to convert anything. Yay. Choose your frat, go through the Hazing Hunter's Bane ritual, and congrats! You're now a proud member of the Order of Alpha Kappa Patata, or whatever. Okay, how many do we have left? 7? Okay, enough. We're doing lightning round. Extra attack at level 5. You attack, but it's extra this time. Brand of Castigation at level 6. When your twin katanas, handbow, Glock have their Crimson Rite active, you implant a GPS tracker on whoever you hit with them, and you get to inflict your Hemocraft die as damage every time that creature deals damage to anyone, not just you. This is like Hunter's Mark's cooler sister. Grim Psychometry at level 9. Whenever you try to recall info on the tragic backstory of an object, it does specify that it's sinister or tragic history. The object, much like you, must be edgy. Anyway, when you do that, you have advantage. And at the DM's discretion, you might also trigger a Raven-Simonian vision, like if the object is suitably tragic and or sinister. Dark Augmentation at level 10. My Dark Augmentation. That's a reference for maybe more people than I think.
Augmentation.
Anyway, you unlock Shadow the Hedgehog's roller skates of eternal suffering and pain and gain 5 feet of speed. And this is the best bit, I don't know why it's additionally, you add your Hemocraft modifier, so either wisdom or intelligence, to strength, dexterity, or con saves. That's amazing. I love this feature. Brand of Tethering at level 13. Whenever the creature you hit with your empowered Katanas of Doom is mean to someone else, the damage you inflict on that creature doubles, and it makes it basically impossible for it to run away successfully. Pokemon style. Again, DMs planning to have the boss teleport away are screaming and crying right now. Hardened Soul at level 14. You have advantage on saving throws against being charmed and frightened. The Leona hardening tutorial. There you go, that's the Dragon Age quota for the video. And finally, at level 20, Sanguine Mastery. Whenever a feature asks you to hurt yourself in your confusion with your Hemocraft die, you can re-roll your Hemocraft die and take the lower result. And if you get a crit, you gain a use of Blood Maledict. And that's it. God. No more research-heavy videos. Please. Okay, that's enough. Human familiar, you are dismissed. I'll take care of subclasses. Blood Hunter abilities kind of push you towards Edgelord with all the blood stuff, but there's really nothing in the text stopping you from making your Blood Hunter cute. Like, imagine, I don't know, a pigeon guy. He took the ritual to rid the magical forest, working title, and all the animal people living in the magical tree city, working title, of evil shadow monsters, and in the process discovers that this whole shadow monster business is the work of some evil, shadowy, dream-themed god. Well, you can do that. I mean, you'll need to be able to play a pigeon for you to be able to do that. And guess what? You are able to do that with Humblewood Tales. The massively successful campaign setting Humblewood is growing even more. I feel like this thing just keeps getting more popular. Humblewood Tales is a new adventure supplement book that takes place in the Beatrix Potter coded world of Humblewood. But make no mistake, this thing can get dark. This book is more than 200 pages of brand new adventures, characters, monsties for you to blood hunt, magic items, shops, and my favorite part, a whole bunch of adventures ready for you to run to try out this new world. They go from level 3 through level 8, and one of them has pirates in it, so I'm 100% down. Cute animal pirates. And the whole book has a tie-in comic, and I find that delightful and a perfect way for you to get familiar with this world. So if all of this sounds good, and it should, go check out Humblewood Tales out. It's the very first link in the description. And now that we can make a pigeon blood hunter, let's see what abilities that pigeon gets. So as you can see, blood hunters get a lot of abilities, so you would think their subclasses are kinda like barbarian subclasses, just a pretty little bow, a small extra thing. And you would be wrong. Blood hunters get a ton of flavor from their class, but their subclasses also bring a massive amount of flavor on their own. Let's look at a few. Keyword few. Look how long this video is. I already talked about the Order of the Lichen in my werewolf video, and I got one thing wrong about it there, and it haunts me to this day, baby, I'm sorry. So let's look at what kinda has become the poster boy for the blood hunties, thanks to a certain purple tiefling, the Order of the Ghost Layer.
Fiona, is that a ghost behind you?
The Order of the Ghostbusters is the oldest blood hunter order, apparently being the ones that discovered blood magic. As the name ever so subtly implies, these guys specialize in killing undead, but like in a horny way. They obsess over death and the moment of death and the moment of the kill and what happens after death and all that. D&D loves to make necromancy subclasses for things, but this one is a twist on that. It's an anti-necromancer subclass, kind of like the Cleric of the Grave. Abilities-wise, this subclass keeps the blood hunters as DPS with utility, but like in a fun, funky way. You get access to radiant damage with the Rite of Dawn, you can travel into the ghost dimension for extra mobility, you can get a ton of sources for extra damage, with some abilities doubling your hemocraft damage, and you get extra good at fighting ghosties. Specifically ghosties though. Like there are abilities only about hitting incorporeal undead. Abilities that let you end possessions on people, and funniest of all, you can target creatures that don't have blood. I feel like this is the sort of thing that you would make fun of for being too situational, but then find out that it comes up surprisingly often. It doesn't escape the situational allegations that all subclasses that center on a specific type of monster get, and I'm normally okay with subclasses getting a bit situational, but the focus on specifically incorporeal undead might be a bit too niche. Definitely check with your DM if they plan to include plenty of ghosties to fight before you pick this.
Hey there, demons. It's me, your boy.
Moving on from the incorporeal and into the very corporeal, super corporeal in fact, I always like to pick the weird one for the second close look, and the weird blood hunter is definitely the Order of the Mutant. And this one is my favorite, so I'll try and fail at not being biased. You know when I said that taking the fraternity hazing ritual to become a blood hunter could change you completely? These guys love that. The Order of the Mutant splintered off from the other orders when they got super into the process of the Hunter's Bane ritual. This order studied the way in which practicing blood magic alters the body, and then harnessed that change and amplified it with pills and potions and spooky experiments to turn themselves into, well, a mutant, a thing that changes its biology depending on its needs. When it comes to their abilities, their signature ability is Mutagen Craft. Mutant blood hunters use their mutagen ability to make mutagens to mutate their body. Say that 3 times fast. You can create more mutagens and know more formulas as you go up in levels. The formulas are what these mutagens actually do once you use a bonus action to down whatever moonshine, herbal medicine, essential oil, tummy tea you got off of some shady centuries old secret from your order. You choose between a bunch. Once again, blood hunters are the most customizable thing you can pick, and the cool thing about them is that they always have an upside and a downside. The Red Bull mutagen. gives you an actual flying speed for a whole hour, but also disadvantage on dex and strength checks. The Axe body spray mutagen reinforces the collagen bonds in your skin and brings back its youthful elasticity, which gives you advantage on charisma checks, but also disadvantage on initiative. The Tiger Balm mutagen gives you resistance to cold damage, but vulnerability to fire. Anyway, you get it. I love mutagens so much. Most of the other subclass abilities build on mutagens, with strange metabolism allowing you to ignore the negatives for a wee little bit, and exalted mutation allowing you to change mutagens on the fly as a bonus action. Order of the Mutant really avoids the whole curse of situational subclass by not concentrating on what enemy type these guys hunt, but rather how they hunt. Since it's about changing your body, your abilities can be about that rather than about what happens when the DM finally puts that enemy in front of you. It gives power to the player. The only one I would consider remotely situational is Brand of the Axiom, and even then, it affects so many enemies that you're bound to run into them, even if your DM is not paying attention to your little edgelord. So this subclass sets a precedent for a Bloodhunter subclass to not be about hunting a specific monster. Interesting. Of course, there are many others. Well, not really. Two more. There's the Order of the Wolf graphic t-shirt. And the Order of the What If This Thing Could Also Cast Spells on top of everything. That's nice. We've done a whole rundown on Bloodhunters, and that's all well and good. But what if we gave Bloodhunters a new twist? So you want to play a Bloodhunter. Okay, so remember my thing about druids being very hard to play? I find Bloodhunters kinda have the same thing, but in their own unique way. And it just so happens that I like the way that Bloodhunters are hard to play about 10 times more than the way that druids do it. Druids are hard to play because they're about clerical work. If you love paperwork, you will love them. They are hard to play because you need to spin about 7 plates in the air at the same time to play them optimally. And you can't fall back on knowing the basics of your character because your character changes like half of their stats or more depending on their form. 2024 has somewhat mitigated this by limiting the number of stat blocks you need to carry around, but boy do you still need to carry them around and use them. Bloodhunters, conversely, are hard because they are hard to build. They have so many options, and options within those options, and options within the options of the options. It's all very video gamey, which somehow means bad in some circles. I am a video game developer. Video game does not mean bad to me, but in this case, it sure means complicated. I'll prove it. If you play Bloodhunter, you will have to choose a weapon build. Do you go dex-based, strength-based, ranged, dual wielding? Your choice. This guy can do it all. This is true of some martials, but not all. Look at monk or barb or rogue. Also, these guys get a fighting style, so you better pick your weapon and build knowing which one you're going for. That's one choice that depends on a choice that will come later. You also have to keep track of a spell save DC with your Hemocraft. Keep track of your evolving Hemocraft die, which evolves with levels. Keep track of your HP, not only as if it goes down, it's bad, but also as a resource for your abilities, which no other class has to do. And you gotta choose a Bloodhunter's Curse out of 12, and subclasses give you one of these for free, so you better figure out which subclass you want so you don't pick that one. Mind you, this is just level 1. These are the things to choose or keep in mind when you make a Bloodhunter. At level 2, you're gonna choose a fighting style out of 4 options. Also at level 2, you're gonna choose a Crimson Rite out of 6. And then at level 3, you choose a subclass, and there's a lot of choices to make and resources to keep track of in there depending on the subclass. Profane Soul will make you choose spells and keep track of spell slots. Ghost Layer will give you more blood curses to choose. Lycan will give you a powered up form with its own features, and Mutagen gives you several formulas and usages of mutagens. So yeah, this is a lot. Bloodhunters might be the toughest class to put in front of a newbie, especially because the choices are concentrated at the earliest levels of the class, and they are interconnected with each other. Choosing between a strength or dex build will affect your weapon, which will affect your fighting style, which will affect the Crimson Rite you choose, and your blood curse will affect the subclass you pick because some get you a blood curse for free. See what I mean? But here's the kicker, you weren't expecting this. I think they were never meant to be put in front of a newbie. I think that Bloodhunters is sort of a design evolution of what was once called a prestige class. Bloodhunters are here for people that are very familiar with D&D. If you know the rules inside and out, and if you enjoy the process of building a character itself, Bloodhunter is for you. Classes like these are very healthy for the game because they give the most committed fans something to sink their teeth into after 1,000 hours of playing a given game. Studios making games often see these as kind of a sunk cost because most of the player base just does not play them ever on account of them being so hard to get into, but they are very important to have in stuff like MMOs because of their longevity. Like, somebody has to play Black Mage in Final Fantasy XIV, and it isn't gonna be me. Or the current bane of the games industry, live service games. Keep making them, guys. If you sink $7 trillion quadrillion on the next one, I bet that one will be the big one. But they're also good for literally 50-year-old games. And guess what D&D is? If you're one of those freaks that enjoys the ancient art of spending 2 hours on Excel sheets calculating damage per round as you dip into 3 to 7 different classes to make up Bard Luckadin a rogue moon druid with 7 feats instead of ASIs. Oof. Ow. Bloodhunter gives you a ton of little toys to play with, but as I said, as long as you actively enjoy building characters mechanically and expressing your character through your mechanics, Bloodhunter is an extremely solid option for veteran players. So time out. Why am I okay with Bloodhunters being hard but not with Druids being hard? Well, much like my talent, the reasons are multifaceted and complex. First off, Bloodhunter is complicated in a completely different way than Druid is. Bloodhunter is complicated because of the options you choose. Once, Druid asks you to not only do a bunch of clerical work, which Cleric doesn't ask you to do, it also asks you to do that throughout the campaign. You also can't really build druids as much as you want because you rely on the DM being really into Zoo Tycoon and showing you the animals you would like to anamorph into. Bloodhunter is mainly complicated to build, probably the hardest one to build, but druids are mainly complicated to play, so the crunch is like constant with them. Secondly, yes, I have several reasons for this, the fantasy the druid tries to embody is like 10 times more popular than the Bloodhunter. Newbies to D&D know what a druid is. They have heard of it, either from D&D itself or from fantasy in general. They are aware of the concept and might come to the table excited to play a nature guy. Bloodhunters? I didn't even know what Bloodhunters were about when I first heard of them. If you haven't played The Witcher or are not familiar with the much more obscure concept of blood magic, and yes, blood magic is much more obscure in comparison with the concept of nature guy, you're just not gonna show up to your very first table for your very first play pretend game like, you know what, I would like to play a martial class that uses HP as a resource to access its utility feature alongside with enhanced damage. If a new player says, I wanna be a monster hunter, you can hand them Ranger and feel happy about their blissful ignorance when it comes to the Ranger's reputation, because they are new and haven't been to the Reddit hellscape yet. Thirdly, yes, 3 of these, and most importantly, Bloodhunter is not a core class. It's not even an official class. It feels like one if you use D&D Beyond a lot, but it's not in the books. If your introduction to D&D is Critical Role Campaign 2, you might be aware of it, but not if you started past episode 26. But if you know about it, you are, by default, at least somewhat familiar with the game. Official classes should worry about being accessible to newbies. Prestige official classes, back when those were a thing, ensured that new players couldn't access them by making it impossible for you to start at early levels as one of them. Bloodhunters ensures new players don't get to it by not being official, not being in the books, and so it can't be as complicated as it wants to be, and I happen to think it is complicated in a very fun way. And that's why I like them so much. Except Bloodhunter has the exact same problem as Artificer. Problems, plural. In fact, if you've seen my Artificer video, you know what this is. There are 4 subclasses for it, and that's it. No new blood rights, no new blood curses. What you see here is what you get past the 2020 update. Now, I have to mention here that this is 100% fine because it's not an official class. Matthew Mercer doesn't owe it to anybody to keep releasing content for it, but we should have gotten more Artificer content by now, because even if it isn't a core class, it's still an official one. Bloodhunters isn't. And so that's why it's 100% fine. But wouldn't it be cool if we had new stuff though? Wouldn't it be sick if we got new stuff for it though? Like I said, it's full of little toys for character building gremlins to have fun with. What if we gave more of those to those gremlins as a treat? Hear me out. What if we took a page from the Order of the Mutant? We know thanks to them that not all Bloodhunters are created to fight a specific monster. Some are created when Bloodhunters get creative about blood magic. Looking at what we already have for Bloodhunters, we don't get a lot of support options. Matthew Mercer said that this class is DPS and utility. What if that utility was tanking adjacent, but not a full tank, an off tank? If you're video game pilled and of the Order of the Mountain Dew, yes. What if we went super hard on the gamble of blood magic, taking damage in exchange for power, the most unique and fun part of the class, and we went way more with that than normal Bloodhunters do? And hear me out, what if when you did this, when you save people by taking the pain that was meant for them onto yourself, which is your own unique way of tanking that we haven't seen in D&D, you actually empowered your blood magic further? What if you could use other people's pain to fuel your blood magic even more? What if we paired this with more self-sustained options to allow this playstyle to be viable? And what if we gave them a sort of signature blood curse? All of the blood hunter subclasses get one for free that is made for them, but also it would be an extra one for you to pick if you're playing any blood hunter. And what if we went further in the lore aspect? I love how flavorful blood hunters are, so what if we kept that going by showing a completely different side of them? We're gonna keep the darker tone of the class, that is its appeal and its fantasy, but what if we explored a different side of it? What about a quieter way to channel this whole blood magic thing, but with kind of terrifying implications? No flashy blood thingy, but more of a quiet, terrifying thing if you think about it for too long. Maybe a who watches the watchers kind of thing. The class keeps talking about how blood hunters can turn into monsters. What if there was a failsafe for that? And what if that failsafe was an order itself? There is a name for those that suffer for the sake of others. They're called martyrs. Let's go. Blood magic often invokes images of ostentatious rivers of crimson, but few know that blood does not have to be shed for it to be used in the process of hemomancy. It's just the most common way to harness this power, and nobody knows this better than the hunters belonging to the Order of the Martyr. The Order of the Martyr, much like the Order of the Mutant, splintered off from older orders when these hunters found that it was pain and not the actual act of bloodletting that allowed hemomancers to channel their magic. Mourners, the members of this order, have mastered the act of feeling that pain and taking on the pain of others to channel their own magic. Martyrs never break the skin when drawing upon their powers. Instead, they inflict psychic pain onto themselves and take within themselves the pain felt by others in order to turn this suffering into power. This has led to the telltale sign of these hunters being the tears that stream down their faces when they draw forth their blood magic. Not anyone can join the Order of the Martyr. Only those that have experienced a suitable level of pain, whether psychological or physical, are ever invited into the Order. Depending on the sources of this initial pain, the tears that flow as a result of their blood magic will manifest in different ways, from black as night, to crimson, to even gold. This selection is part of their Hunter's Bane ritual, since the particular way in which martyrs channel blood magic is reliant on empathy. Because martyrs are expected to not only feel their own pain, but feel the pain of others to utilize their powers. They must understand pain on a visceral level. This has made them somewhat of an oddity among even other hunters. While all blood hunters are regarded with apprehension or even fear by the masses, martyrs are often met with these same feelings by their fellow hunters on account of their singular way of using their powers and readiness to take on the pain of others to use it as a weapon. But the true reason why blood hunters fear martyrs is the true purpose behind the order. All blood hunters hunt the wicked, but the Order of the Martyr specializes in hunting those that have succumbed to blood magic and turned into what they were supposed to fight. Former blood hunters turned into vicious monsters. That's what the martyrs prey upon. To other orders, martyrs are a walking reminder of what will happen should they lose their tenuous grasp on their powers. So yeah, a blood hunter that isn't about, drawing blood. More of a psychological one, and one that has its own history and place among the orders. One that both supports the other orders, but also weirds them out and scares them, because they were made to keep them in check. That's why they have necrotic resistance. It's the damage type associated with other blood hunters. And their tears motif? I feel like if you like the blood hunter for the death metal vibe, it might not be for you, but if you're more of a gothic metal or a symphonic metal kind of connoisseur, or hell, if blood hunter isn't for you, this one might be. It sure is different enough, and it digs further on the ground laid on by the mutant. And that's cool and all, but as I said, blood hunters have the same problems as artificers. Plural. Two problems. Blood hunters are not SRD, which means that you can't use the OGL to publish subclasses for them, which means that this subclass and the blood curse that go with it can't exist, so it has all been for nothing. Unless I publish it as fan content. I believe? I'm pretty sure. I'm like 70% sure. Who knows? Might not be there for long. But it is now in the description of this very video for 100% certified fan content free. I won't ever be able to put it into a book or whatever, but I frankly really like what I've cooked here. So let me know if you do too. But if Blood Hunter is not your cup of tea, might I suggest the other non-core class? This video on Artificers has a brand new one right there. And if you want to hear more about Blood Hunters, how about my video on playing a werewolf in D&D? I talk about them and like 7 other ways to play a werewolf. Alright, remember to donate blood if you can. Bye bye! Mwah!